Ladies and gentlemen, this video is quite an all-arounder. It's a hotspot for information on this pending Bitcoin downtrend. I say pending because the downtrend hasn't actually started yet. We have not seen a break of the higher-low uptrend, and so we need to be seeing that breakdown soon. I do think it will occur. We're looking into three main questions today. Where will this downwards trend take us, price-wise? When will we reach the bottom? And what will happen to Ethereum and altcoins in relation to Bitcoin when this downwards trend occurs, right? We'll also be looking into subtopics like, for example, Fibonacci, for example, RSI. These are all trends we're using to answer those questions. We're also looking into things like when Bitcoin will reach an all-time high. Perhaps it's something people have discussed a lot before, but I'm going to be giving you my take on it. Ladies and gentlemen, lots to discuss today. Let's get into it. Guys, Bitcoin is finally testing the support lines that are making up this upwards trend and have made up this upwards trend from around September 11th, 2023, when we saw the bottom here at 24K before moving upwards. These yellow lines on the screen here, we'll look at those in a second. They're very important to look at. We need to discuss them. We also need to discuss the daily chart RSI and then get into things like the weekly chart, because the weekly candle is going to show us quite a lot about Bitcoin. I'm expecting further downside price action on Bitcoin. I want to make that very clear. We're going to discuss where we can go. We'll use the weekly chart to discuss that. Weekly candle close. We'll use the weekly chart RSI. We'll use things even like the BLX to get a determination about where we need to be at what time. For example, we're using this chart here specifically to determine when we'll be breaking all-time highs on Bitcoin. That will be around the end of this year. Bitcoin dominance we need to look at as well. You know, look at how altcoins performing against Bitcoin, what altcoins will do in comparison to Bitcoin on this move downwards on Bitcoin. Ethereum and total cryptocurrency market cap are going to help support those cases. And then finally, at some point, we're going to look into Fibonacci, because Fib from last cycle, did something very particular, and we could be doing it again this time, okay? And that would suggest Bitcoin going downwards to a certain price level. We'll discuss that all within the bounds of this video, right? So lots to discuss today. Before we get into any of it though, check out the VIP group on Telegram. On Telegram, as you can see, we have the VIP information and results group, which you can see on the screen right now. This gives you, again, as per the title, all of the information and results you need to make a decision about VIP membership. Again, PDF of all trading results, 78.52% win rate over the course of 1 year and 3 months, which is pretty damn good. So check out the VIP group if you want to trade altcoins on Telegram. Now let's get into all the content today. I'll try and keep it as short as I possibly can. Okay, so starting off the daily chart, what exactly is going on Bitcoin? Well, as we know, we saw a rejection from the major resistance level at 49K. We predicted a 48K to 52K rejection. That occurred perfectly as per our predictions. And now we're progressing it to the downside. This upwards trend is now at risk of being broken. It's not quite broken yet. And it's important to note that. Let's delete everything so we can take a clean look here. When you're looking at upwards trends and downwards trends, it's quite simplistic, but it is a point that's worth mentioning. What makes up an upwards trend? An upwards trend is essentially when you see, right, higher lows, okay, and higher highs. Consistent higher lows and higher highs. Once you get a breakdown, once you get a lower low, for example, so a breakdown of something like 40K, which is our kind of neckline of this move here, once we get a breakdown of that level, that's when we start to see the upwards trend flip into a reversal, flip into a confirmed downwards trend. And so it's actually very simple for this reasoning. To call tops and bottoms on Bitcoin. I mean, cyclical tops and bottoms, I'm talking about, you know, tops and bottoms of bull markets to bear markets. It's very, very simple, because once you understand the cyclical trends, once you understand when we're meant to bottom, okay, you can very easily determine that when we flip a macro resistance level and start an upwards trend, you can very easily kind of identify, okay, that was the bottom, let's buy, right? So trends and macro trends and what we do based on cyclical data is quite simple. In this case, we've got 4 months of upwards trend, which is extremely long. You know, upwards trends don't generally last this long unless it is a bull market, which it's not yet, right? Cyclically speaking, it depends on your definition of bull market, right? But cyclically speaking, the bull market only occurs after the halving. So this isn't a bull market. We've seen 4 months of upwards trend. We've seen 90% price action, 90% gain in the price action without any serious correction whatsoever. And now, finally, the ETF narrative that drove the price to the upside has finally ended. There's no more ETF narrative now. And I know people are going to say, oh, there is ETF narrative because ETFs buying is going to be coming in. No. Let me make something very clear, okay? Narratives, rumors, you know, anticipation is much, much stronger than the actual reality of something. So the anticipation of ETFs is much stronger than the actuality of ETFs, the buying that comes from ETFs. That's a very fundamental point that people need to understand. Now that the narrative, the anticipation is over, okay? Yes, the reality is there. Now the anticipation is over. We're testing the upwards trend. We're coming back to reality of what's going on with TA. We've lost the 50 SMA. Okay, and now we're testing these support lines. What's the likely thing to occur? Well, I think what's likely is we potentially see a bounce, maybe to 44.7k, something like that, or maybe not. We just break down. I expect a breakdown at some point. I'm not sure if we'll see a bounce or not. If we're looking at short-term price action, go to the hourly chart. We've already kind of had a little bounce, but as you can see, some sort of descending channel, some sort of descending wedge formation forming here. Look, yeah, perhaps we see a bounce. As I said, 44.7k would seem reasonable, something in that region. But overall, if we're looking at the actual medium-term price action rather than short-term movements, which don't mean anything in the long-term scale, medium-term price action, we're looking for a breakdown of these yellow lines here. Okay, once we get that breakdown, that would be a confirmation that the upwards trend is over, specifically once we break down from 40k. Okay, so we're actually still in an upwards trend, which is very important to note. We're genuinely still in an upwards trend on Bitcoin. We haven't seen a lower low. Again, once we break 40k, that would be a complete confirmation that this upwards trend is coming to an end. And once we break 40k, our targets would become valid, actualized, I should say. We've got targets that we spoke about at the very peak here. 38.5k is the first target on this move. Below that, we're looking at 35k. Below that, we're looking at 32k. I don't think we'll go below 32. I'm not even sure we'll reach 32. I'm not sure. That seems a little bit low, but for sure, 38.5k seems very, very, very likely, and potentially go lower than that. There are targets we need to speak about Fibonacci in a second, but I'll just finish my point here. We also have targets stemming from the weekly chart RSI, and this is why it gets a little bit complicated when you're speaking about actual direct targets. Like, it's very difficult to say where the actual price point of the bottom will be. That's not really how TA works. TA is not really used for predicting actual price point. It's used very well to predict where roughly it will happen and when roughly it will happen. Yeah, that's what we can predict via TA. That's why calling cyclical tops and cyclical bottoms is a little bit complicated, because you don't know exactly where the price will be, but you know vaguely when it will occur and vaguely where it will occur, right? So actual price target, that's why I gave you 3 price targets there, right? I didn't just say 38.5k. I said 38.5k is the first target. It's highly likely to be reached. 35k is a possibility. 32k is also a possibility, but it's looking less likely as we get that far down. I still think it's possible. I still think the macro structure would be intact if we went there, but it just wouldn't be my first scenario. I wouldn't be claiming 32k. I'd rather claim 38.5k and be safe. Of course, that's what TA is. If someone's giving you a direct number for every single move, it looks like they're being professional, but in reality, they're actually just a charlatan, because that's not how TA works. That's not what TA can do for you. But what I will say is this: there are things like the weekly chart. Candle closes, as you can see, very strong resistance been forming here at 43.8k, very strong support at 41.3k. We get a candle close below that level, you can expect the downwards trend to continue for many weeks. If you get a candle close above that level, you can expect the upwards trend to continue for many weeks, right? There's levels like that that help us determine where the medium-term trends are. Right now, we're facing very strong resistance in a double top. It's very likely we'll get a candle close below 41.3k. It's very likely we will go down for many weeks, okay? That's the reality, but right now it hasn't actually been validated yet. As you can see, we're still trending in the middle. Moving forward further, weekly chart RSI. Weekly chart RSI has been very important in previous cycles, in between bull markets and bear markets, like where we are right now. And right now we are targeting this yellow line on the weekly chart RSI. That will be our target. We don't know exactly where the price will be when we get there, because that's not how the RSI works, but we know that that is a major support zone, because that's got 3 separate retests now, over the course of, basically a year and a half or more. And in the previous cycles, it's been used as very important as well. So we know that that's a target, and we know likely, just like in the last cycles, we'll probably break down from that target as well. So again, I'm not ruling out any particular price target for Bitcoin in this correction. I'm just saying a correction is very likely, and the correction has technically started. Yes, we are down. We're down 15%, and that was predicted, and we did very well in predicting that. But in terms of the actual trend itself, the trend itself hasn't broken down yet. I'm saying that trend probably will break down. That's what I'm saying in this video. I'm giving you vague areas where we can expect the price to go. Again, 38.5k is certainly the first target. I would be very, very surprised if Bitcoin didn't reach that level. It would be shocking, actually. If Bitcoin didn't retest 38.5k, that would genuinely shock me. But again, I'm not saying that so you sell all your Bitcoin, because I'm not doing that. I'm not selling my Bitcoin, right? For tax purposes, I'm not doing it, because I get the tax deduction after a year of holding if I sell. So I'm not even selling my Bitcoin right now, and I'm not telling you necessarily to sell your Bitcoin. I'm just telling you what to expect from the market, So I think there's differences in that. But what I will say is this, we need to talk about Fibonacci at some point. There are targets on Bitcoin that stem as low as 28k. I think these targets are slightly optimistic, right? As I said, even 32k seems slightly optimistic. I think it's possible. I think it's on the table, certainly. I don't think it would be any, I don't think it would be any cyclical damage by going to 32k. And 28k, we could see a wick to 28k from 32k. But again, once you start talking about the 20ks again, it just gets a little bit optimistic, just like the bulls who were talking about 68k on this move of ETFs. It just turns into a little bit of that. But I do see the chance of it. I don't think it's ridiculous. I will say that, because if we're looking at 2019, we have a Fibonacci trend. If we take the Fib measurement from the peak of the bull market to the bottom of the bear market, and we see that we generally reach around 0.618 on Fibonacci, and then retrace downwards to 0.236, or at least we did in 2019. We reached 0.618. If we retrace down to 0.236, we'd be reaching 28.1k, it says there. So yeah, look, who knows? That's not a trend by any means, but we do have similarities to 2019 in a lot of ways that we've discussed previously, particularly in the fact that we've seen an overextension before the halving. That's exactly what happened in 2019. So we could see a retracement that's equal in sizes per Fibonacci, which would take us to 28k. Again, I'm not confident in any particular price target. I'm just putting in possibilities here. I will say this: if Bitcoin spent any considerable time below 32k, I'd start to get a bit worried. I would start to get worried, because I don't think we need to go below that level again. If we're looking at, for any extended period of time, perhaps we'd see a wick, but I don't think there's any reason really why, after fighting for so long in the bear market and in the bull market to hold up a support, we now, after pumping so high, so close to the halving, would have to drop back down below this 28k to 32k block. There's just no reason to do that. I think, as I said, the lowest we can probably go on Bitcoin is 28 to 32. That is a support block in itself, 28 to 32. If we go below that green box on the screen, I would start to get genuinely worried about Bitcoin. But that would be a nice correction to see. Again, so I'm going to list out my targets on the screen right now so you can see them. These are my targets for the move, and obviously the lower we go, the more hypothetical they become. But I think 38.5k is very likely. I think that something like 35.4k is not particularly off the table whatsoever. In fact, I think that'll be a healthy correction. 32k is when we start getting into this territory where it's a bit risky, and then 28k is the lowest possible healthy target we have. Anything below that level, and I'd start to get very, very concerned about the Bitcoin cyclical structure. But I think all these targets are hypothetically possible. I don't think any of them would necessarily damage the structure too much. Bitcoin does have a long time until it needs to be breaking all-time highs. We've got a trend here that says from peak to peak, right? From bull market top to when we break that bull market high, we see 1,100 days. That's happened in 2015, that's happened in 2019, and it could be happening again here. For all intents and purposes, we think it is. So that would bring us to a break of all-time highs around October, November, December, January. That's what we're looking at for a break of all-time highs. So we've got time. We've got 9 months into October. That's a long time. That's 3/4 of price action. We've got a long time. To think about 9 months, if you put it in perspective. In 4 months, right? In 4 months from September, we moved upwards 90%, right? If we moved upwards another 90% from where we are right now, that would bring us to a price point of around 77k, all right? So we've got time. Time's not the issue for right now for Bitcoin. Bitcoin can take its time in this correction. Bitcoin can go downwards quite significantly. As long as we see the same kind of momentum return in the market after the halving, like we saw in the previous cycles, for example here, and for example over here, we are fine. Time is not an issue right now. We're very much on track. In fact, we were ahead of course, which is why we need to see this correction. What about Ethereum? What about other coins other than Bitcoin? Because a lot of people are talking about that right now. Well, I'm going to tell you something right now, okay? I don't think the Bitcoin dominance top is in. If we're looking at the cyclical structures, which is what we do on this channel, cyclical theory is the number one basis for all of our predictions. It's been very important for us in the past, but it's going to be very important in the future, provided it's still valid, right? But, if we're looking at cyclical structures, we can see, okay, cool, yeah, we're seeing a top formation here from a TAD perspective, but we see that so often on total cryptocurrency market cap, and it doesn't do anything. Right here, top formation, we just consolidated, went upwards again, The thing is, Bitcoin dominance is not really subject to TA in the same way that a regular Bitcoin or Ethereum or altcoin chart is. This is much more cyclical, okay? So if we're looking cyclically, when does Bitcoin dominance generally top? Well, it had a temporary top in 2019 around the same time we're at right now, okay, after the big peak. So perhaps we see a temporary top here, as I said, but we could go downwards. But ultimately, after the halving or before the halving, I'm still expecting a peak on Bitcoin dominance. I'm still expecting highs to be reached on Bitcoin dominance, because if we're looking back to the previous cycle, right, something like 2017, we can see that the 2016 halving was around July, and just before the halving, it was actually a massive drop in Bitcoin dominance we saw. We saw then, it go upwards again after the halving, and then only started dropping properly until it started dropping properly, when we saw the Bitcoin break all-time highs from the previous cycle. So, look, the fact of the matter is, Bitcoin dominance is still cyclically uptrending. Yes, we could see a local top here. We could see local price action to the downside on Bitcoin dominance. But if we're talking what generally happens, okay, I know that 2019 was a bit of see, 2019 is hard to look at for some reasons, right? Yes, we saw a local top on Bitcoin dominance. Yes, it led to downside price action for a long period of time. But we have to be honest about 2019 and 2020. We can't take it out of context. 2020 was COVID, okay? In February 2020, we saw the COVID drop. So it's very difficult to take data from that specific price region so seriously. And given the fact we only really have, other than 2019, 2015 to look at in Bitcoin dominance, it's very hard to make claims about Bitcoin dominance this year. What we can do is generalize. Where are we right now? We're not in the bull market yet. We haven't seen the halving yet. We're in a pretty similar phase of the market cycle to what we were 6 months ago, realistically. Right? We're in the uptrend before the halving, accumulation before the halving. And so we have to some extent, concede that in lack of data, the most logical thing we can expect is continued uptrends on Bitcoin dominance, regardless of the short-term price movements. I don't necessarily think the Bitcoin dominance top is in. I think we'll see a Bitcoin dominance top around that 57 to 59% region. That's where I think we'll see a top. And then I think when the bull market kicks off, it will start downtrending from there. And that's speculation, I will admit. There's not a massive amount of data due to the pollution of data in 2020 during COVID that supports that, but I think it's still a little bit too early for altcoins to start outperforming Bitcoin. I genuinely do think it is. We've only come back in this pullback to regions we saw in October on Bitcoin dominance. I do accept that Ethereum's looking quite good. Ethereum's flipped its macro support zone, but I also do acknowledge that Ethereum is very much behind Bitcoin still. If we're looking at the percentage Ethereum needs to go to get to all-time highs, we're looking at 96%. If we're looking at the percentage Bitcoin needs to go to get to all-time highs, we're looking at something much more small. We're looking at something like a 60%. Okay, so Bitcoin is still ahead of the ball in Ethereum and altcoins in general. Even if Bitcoin dominance was to go down, it still would be. And so you have to trust the macro trends. You have to try and go away from the short-term data. But look, there's a reason why I've been interested recently in low-cap altcoins. And when the halving occurs, I will start to become interested in medium and high caps. I've made that very clear in my pinned channel video, my buying strategy. But the low-cap altcoin things is quite new. I am buying low-cap altcoins. I've made various videos about it. You can just scroll back on my channel history and look for the titles. And I've given my reasonings for that. Right now, I don't think still that it's the time to buy mid and high caps. I don't necessarily think they'll hold up against Bitcoin too well still for the next few months, but we are certainly getting into the period of time, a few months from now, where perhaps, okay, we can start to consider it more seriously. But I'm just saying, I don't think necessarily it's over yet for Bitcoin dominance. Although I'm admitting that there's not a massive amount of cyclical data to support any particular bias in that. I'm just making a guess, essentially, based on what I believe to be the narrative given to me by cyclical theory. So look, who knows with Bitcoin dominance to an extent? It's a bit hard to guess specifically. We have to accept we did see an all-time high on Bitcoin dominance after the halving, so we could expect to see that again, which means we need to go higher on Bitcoin dominance. But look, we're not making this video to speak about Bitcoin dominance really. That was meant to be a brief thing. It just turned into a bit of a ramble. I want to talk about targets for total cryptocurrency market cap as well, because obviously total cryptocurrency market cap lines up with Bitcoin quite well. We've got targets on total cryptocurrency market cap down here at 1.5 trillion, down here at 1.4 and 1.3 trillion. So those levels we'll be looking at as well. If they line up with any particular Bitcoin support level, that will greatly increase the chance that Bitcoin sees a bounce and Bitcoin sees the bottom of its correction. But as of right now, I'm using this video to tell you that Bitcoin, technically speaking, has not started a downtrend yet. It has seen a significant correction to support, and if we break that support we're on right now, that's when we'll start the downtrend. Realistically, 40k, 40.1k is what we're looking at for an actual confirmed break of the entire neckline of his structure. Once we get that, we can start really discussing the targets below. We've just given you a brief intro to those targets so you're aware of what we could see, not necessarily in predictions about what we will see. But guys, thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you need an exchange to buy and sell cryptocurrency, you're going to need to check out Bingx or Bitget. Bingx is a global non-KYC, so you can sign up with anywhere in the world with just an email address and a password. Again, that's anywhere in the world you can sign up from with a VPN, email address, and a password. Global non-KYC. And then Bitget is global minus the USA and Canada. So anywhere but USA and Canada, you can sign up KYC. So again, Bingx, non-KYC, no identity verification. Bitget, identity verification. Both very low in trading fees, both never been hacked before, both got protection funds in case they are hacked, so you can get reimbursed in your funds potentially, and both have my referral links down in the comments below and in the description below with a 15% trading fee discount for life. You can literally save thousands with my referral link. Go ahead and check it out. And then finally, the Crypto Academy Become a Trader 10-unit course will teach you everything you need to know about trading, right? Everything you need to know about how to become a trader. We've got all the information on the course website and the email address is there as well for contact. And then finally, the VIP group, as I mentioned at the start, altcoin trading, get on there if you're interested. Guys, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I'll catch you in the next video. Cheers.